As promised, in this video we're going to take a look at extracting our createRectangle function to a separate file to avoid having one large main.js file and instead modularize and put our source code into multiple smaller files. To do so, the first thing I'm going to do is just to create another source file, so another .js file, which I'll just name accordingly createRectangle. So I'll go into this file explorer kind of view here, click new file, and just name it createRectangle.js. As you can see, I have just created this on the same level as our main.js file, and I would recommend, just for simplicity's sake, that you do the same. The next thing I'm going to do is just to cut this function declaration from our main.js file and instead paste it into this createRectangle.js file. And as you can see, there are currently some errors here, and you can probably already imagine why that is, because while we did have our imports here in this main.js file, we no longer have them within our createRectangle.js file. So I'm just going to remove the now unnecessary imports from our main.js file and instead add those imports back into the createRectangle.js file. So we'll say const, and what do we need here? We need an artboard, we'll need the rectangle, and we need a color. So rectangle and color, once again from the scene graph module. And as you can see, we are once again error free, so to speak, and also in the other file, apart from some errors that we already had previously, we should be good to go once again. Next up, there's of course one other big issue. We no longer have access to this createRectangle function from our main.js file. And to regain access, we actually need to export this function from the createRectangle file or module. And if you are already familiar with the common JS2 syntax, Adobe XD plugins just use that syntax, as you may have already seen here with our declaration of the multiple entry points, which is also just this module.exports common JS declaration. So to now actually get access to our createRectangle function once again, all we need to do is to export it from this module, and since we don't have anything else we need to export from here, we can just export it as the only member. So just say module.exports equals createRectangle, and with that we can import the createRectangle function from our createRectangle module within our main.js file. So all we have to do now is just basically the same as with our imports from the scene graph. We can now say const createRectangle, so we can basically specify any name we want here, but we'll just call it createRectangle once again, equals require, and then /createRectangle to reference the local module called createRectangle. And also please note that we can drop the .js extension right here. And if I now save this, and as you can remember, we still want to create our rectangles here, so we can just test this once again. I will remove these two rectangles we have saved, so it should be the new version. And if I now run our plugin once again, you can see that everything still works, but instead of having this one big main.js file, we have now extracted the function into another file, which then makes it much more readable and easy to find what we need. Last but not least, to make this compliant, so to speak, once again with our steps repository, I will remove our black rectangle for now, and with that we actually have reached another checkpoint. So if you for whatever reason haven't been able to follow along until now, you can just copy the step 3 extract rectangle function contents into your plugin directory now, and you should be at the same stage that we are now within our workshop. And in the next video, we're actually going to take a look at a problem that our current implementation still has, which is that, of course, it runs perfectly fine if we now just have the one artboard selected, but what happens if, say, we were to select this rectangle and run our plugin?